We all know what it takes. We have to build a team in order to achieve the dream. But when it comes down to it, most small business owners are still underutilizing one of these most important growth strategies, and we're going to talk about it today. Hi, it's Melanie Benson here, America's leading small business optimizer, and this is the Small Business Optimizer podcast. And I love bringing you people that I think either have like a secret weapon, they've learned how through the School of Hard Knocks how to really optimize their business to make it grow and to make it have a greater impact in the world. And sometimes it's just really fun to hear what other people are doing so we can grow and get great ideas from them. And today I've got a guest who is going to be no exception to the rule. I'll introduce him to you in just a second, but we're going to talk about something that I find is one of the most important, but oftentimes either misused or underused strategies to grow, and it's all about teams. So Jay Henderson, let's talk about Jay and bring him on here. Jay is a people performance expert. I love saying that because it's all about optimizing people. And he teaches business owners how to get the best out of their staff, how to give feedback, hold them accountable, coach them to high performance, and deal with your most difficult employees in a way that, and this is what I love, non-confrontational, super simple, and so that your employees will even love you for doing so. Now, as an entrepreneur, and I think most of us are really passionate about what we love to, what our business is. We want to make people happy. We're here to serve. Imagine being able to take that same energy and bring it to your teams by now knowing how to do a few things really different. So we'll get into that, but we're also going to learn from Jay today a little bit about how he got where he is, because he's got a great story. So Jay, we have overcome the technology. We have got together across the U.S. We made it happen. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
So,
You.
do what?
It's great to meet you. I've heard a lot about you.
See, now you're gonna make me blush. I'm gonna get all verklempt.
Yeah,
We have good people connecting us.
that's right.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you. Let's get a little bit behind the scenes. How did you become inspired to work with teams and to take this angle of helping people create high performance staff members and maybe even hopefully contractors as well?
Yeah, well, many people, most have heard of Stephen R. Covey. And
Yep.
he wrote the book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And I read, let's see, my father sent me the audio cassette program to that in 1986. And that was a long time ago. And the book actually came out in 1989. And by the time the book came out, I had memorized the Seven Habits content that Stephen put out through that audio program. And then, of course, I got the book. I read it till it was tattered and torn. I loved the information. I'd always loved people, and I was always interested in what makes people tick. I want to know kind of like what goes on in the brain where somebody learns something new and then they take that information and they convert that into actual performance. And then how can they further handle that in a way where they're managing themselves under pressure and dealing with the pressure that comes with performance at a high level. And then, of course, the Seven Habits material it resonated. It spoke to me. And then I decided in 91, I decided in 91 that I'd go to work for Stephen Covey. So the night I decided this, I actually got in my car the next morning at 7 a.m. in North Carolina, and I drove to Utah. No apartment, didn't know anybody, but I had this goal. I was going to go work for Stephen Covey. And I got there, and 3 months later, I was working at the Covey Leadership Center, and I spent about 5 years there. And so that's kind of that's the short story really of how I got into it. But when I left Covey in 96, I had found out that there was an organization right down the road, 3 or 4 miles actually from Covey Leadership Center. And they were teaching sports psychology principles, or really how to coach other people to higher levels of performance utilizing sports psychology technologies and information. See, the sports psychologists have been studying how people think and how they perform for 30 plus years. And so sports psychology actually was a real hobby of mine. I'd been studying it when I went to Covey. That's about the same time I started to study sports psychology. And I found this organization teaching sports psychology principles to businesses, which was just like a dream fit for me. And when I got there, they had me complete this really strange exercise that I'd never seen before. Like a disc or a Myers-Briggs, but it wasn't one of those. It was something totally different. And So I completed this exercise and I went in to see the CEO for my second interview, and he knew me like the back of his hand, and it was actually shocking what he knew about me. So that's kind of the evolution of how I got into all that.
You know, it's funny. I was actually just telling somebody this last night that Stephen Covey is the reason I started this career path,
Wow.
because they had started to consult for the Fortune 500 company I was working for at the time, and I was so blown away by the transformation in the management team. And literally overnight, they started inspiring me to want to do things differently. And I remember thinking, oh my God, if they can have this radical change, imagine what could be happening for me if I was able to have the same kind of experience as the mentor. And that was the catalyst for me to start learning about coaching. So it's kind of funny how many lives Stephen Covey has touched over the years, over and over and over again. Talk about having a ripple effect. This guy affected both of us, and here we are today, both of
Yeah,
us excited about something really similar. I love it.
yeah, it's awesome. That's great.
So, in your business, and tell us the name of your business, what it's called,
I call it real talent hiring and development.
which I love. What would you say is the main problem? Because, and I should back up and say that one of the things I tell people when I'm helping them optimize their business is get really clear about the primary solution or problem that you solve and how it helps somebody. So help us understand what that is for you. What's the primary problem that you help a business owner solve?
Well, it's interesting. As a coach, you understand that the value of getting into the world of the person you're coaching. If you can't get out of your own agenda and into their world, it's difficult to have maximum influence and impact on that person and to be a benefit to them, right? So when back to that part of my story, when I went to work for Inside Out, where I took that weird profile and the boss knew me so well, when I experienced what he knew about me, it was so shocking to me that I had to learn more. And it turned out that this man who had developed this science, his name's Wayne Carpenter, actually, he had come out to Sundance, Utah, about 3 months after I started my work with that new company, and he trained us in this science. And then about a year and a half later, it's a funny story. People appreciate this part of the story. I had a girl I was dating. We were talking about getting married. Anyway, I had this girl take the profile, and then this guy Wayne, I faxed him information. There's these 2 pages. Anyway, I faxed him this information, and he faxed me back. Or called me back in like 3 minutes, and he said, "Okay, Jay, here's how you feel in this relationship." And it was like he'd been following me around, and like I had been telling him everything that was happening in the relationship. It completely disarmed me. It blew me away. And that was even a year and several months after I'd been through the training with him. I didn't realize the power of what could be known through this science. Anyway, yeah, and then he said, "Here's how she feels, by the way." And so the ability to get into the world of the performer and understand how they think and how they make decisions and the process that person is going through to how they filter information coming in, how they analyze it, and then how they decide, because action is after the decision. People don't take action until after they make a decision. So they've got to use their own biases and way of thinking to go through that process. So to be able to understand at a core scientific, not statistical analysis, but I mean a real mathematical, objective, scientific measure of how they think and make decisions and how they value the world and what they value, not values like excellence and all that, and then the clarity with which they think and make decisions. So this worldwide guru now, about 18 or so years, has been training me. In the last 5 years, he's been kind of master. It's almost like, imagine if Stephen Covey, if we worked with him every day for 5 years and he taught us everything he knew about organizational development and people and getting the best out of them. And that's what I've been through with this man, Wayne Carpenter. And so that's what I use to, really make an impact. So I help bosses, first of all, know who they've got and how to get the best out of them and how to work with that particular person. Because it's, again, back to getting in their world. Did I get lost in that? Or
No, but you know what? I'm getting really upset with you. You've completely left me hanging. Did you marry the girl? Come on, like you're telling this great story, and then I don't even know the end of the story.
Well, Wayne told me, he said, hey, so the reason I wanted her to take it is because there was just something going on that I couldn't quite put my
Yeah.
finger on. Anyway, no, we did not get married.
Okay, but you put another really special lady through the assessment and married her, right?
No, she wouldn't take it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is I'm sitting here thinking, like, if I ever really like somebody again, I am calling you and I am putting this guy through the assessment because I want to make sure he is the one. So I love that. I love that. You know what? I've been using these tools forever, and I'm actually very fascinated by assessment tools. I've probably taken 10 or 12 of them over the years. I find them to be so invaluable to kind of pull away the blind spots and help you look at things on another level that you might not be willing to tell yourself the truth or maybe be able to access factually until you can see it in that kind of architecture. So I love that you did that with the girl, but I think it's even more powerful that that's the problem you solve, is being able to help leaders and entrepreneurs, business owners of all kind, really be able to understand and navigate the challenge of people dynamics and get more power out of their teams. Really, that's what I hear you saying, yeah?
Yeah, I just spent about an hour on the phone this morning with a CEO of a company in Chicago, and we went over about 20 of his staff. That's not true. We went over about 5 out of about 20 that he ran. But it is very, very valuable to be able to know at a higher degree, what you're really working, because people are guessing, right? They're just, I have my way of thinking and my way of communicating, and I'm putting it out there. Well, that might not work for people, right? So it takes humility to kind of think about that. I'll never forget the first time I had the thought, wow, you mean people don't think exactly the same way I
Yep.
do? And it's fun.
So, in my experience, and I'm going to assume it's similar for you, what you're really doing is you're helping people learn how to not assume
Yes.
and not create barriers, because you're expecting people to process information and to see the world the same way that they do. And it's about building bridges between different processing styles and teaching people how to get better results more effectively and with less stress by understanding other people's paradigms of the world.
That is exactly right. Exactly right. And the other thing I do with this science, because it is objective and you can really rely on it so much. I mean, like you said, you've taken these assessment tools, and I've taken them all too, and I'm trained in several of them, and I use others. But this one that I'm talking about particularly now is unique, so I can use it for hiring. You can't use all of those for hiring.
Right.
No, you can't. So, but this one you can, and there's really scientific reasons why. But the bosses that I have, clients, in other words, they love it that I can get on the phone with them and tell them exactly what they're going to expect, not only from who the person is, but actually in terms of their performance capacity in all kinds of roles: leadership, management, sales.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, can we talk about an example for a minute and maybe give someone a practical tip today that you say they've got a team and they're having maybe some performance issues, and I'm going to set up a situation that I see, and you feel free to add anything you want. But in my experience, what I see happen over and over and over again is the entrepreneur, the business owner, gets really excited and says, I need help getting more stuff done, and they hire someone, and they're so excited that they kind of bring the person on, and then they kind of pull away and let that person handle more stuff. But then the other person, after a while, there is the feeling that they're not getting enough done and that they're falling behind. So if somebody is a business owner and they're having this feeling that their team just can't keep up with them and they're not getting stuff done fast enough, how would you guide somebody through that process?
Well, from the standpoint of my business, see, first of all, the biggest problem we have is the gap between what we expect and what is actually happening.
Totally.
And the bigger that gap is, the more frustration exists. And so, but the first thing I would do is I'd measure the people. Let's really there's systems issues that happen.
Sure.
There's the people issues that happen. from the communication standpoint, like we so clearly talked about earlier, assumptions and so forth. But then there's also the systems issues. Sometimes we don't know as owners and bosses what systems we have that are getting in the way or are, not helping, that are actually going on in our business. So that's one place to look. But then there's the whole piece about who do we have here? I mean, look, people sell themselves into getting the jobs that they have. I mean, I want everybody to work, right? We want everybody working and everybody healthy and making a living, and we're all doing great and having fun. But that doesn't mean that everyone fits in every role they go after. And it doesn't mean that they can perform in every role that they go after. And so the first thing I would do is I would, do some conversation with this boss and then find out, let's measure the people and then let's measure the boss also. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes, the number one reason good people leave companies is because of their direct boss. So as hard as that is to kind of swallow sometimes with our ego as owners and businesses and CEOs and everything, that's kind of one of the things that goes on, right? So sometimes it's the hiring is the problem, and other times it's the lack of management skills that is the problem. So I would take a look at all that stuff. But expectations are a big deal. I'd measure the people, I'd measure the boss, and then I'd dig in from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what you're saying is by measuring the different people that are involved, you can help them understand where the breakdowns are. And I love that you brought up systems because I don't know if you know this, but I have a program that I teach called Build Your Dream Team. And it's really meant for entrepreneurs and small business owners who don't really have a huge team, but they're just in those startup phases. And one of the things I always tell them is before you start blaming someone, you have to actually understand, is it the system? Is the system breaking down and you haven't really given them what they needed to be successful, or is it their motivation and it's on that side? So I love that you just brought that up because it says that no matter what size business, no matter what your situation, it's really it's one of those two things over and over and over again.
Absolutely. Well, that makes me feel good that you say that in your system. Because
I know.
I know I'm on.
High five. We're on the same page. So, Jay, let's pull back the curtain a little bit and talk more about you and what you've learned on this journey, because obviously we tend to teach that which we've personally had to learn. And I'm wondering if you would share with us what has been some of the biggest challenges that you've learned over, or that you've experienced as you've been building this business up and going through all the gyrations of being a small business owner yourself.
Sure. For me, and I'm actually going back to this issue of the biases that I measure, not on purpose, but it's just, I'm an entrepreneurial-oriented person. I like freedom. Mm-hmm. And I'm not much for monotony. And when I have to do the same thing over and over and over again, some people love the certainty in that. Personally, it kind of bores me and it drives me nuts. So focus and making myself focus. Now, then it came down to knowing the steps that I needed to implement to be successful. So problem number one really was, okay, there's so many things going through my mind right now, but look, confidence. There's things, I had confidence in systems and I had confidence in tools, and I knew that if I implement these systems and tools, I'm going to be okay, right? So I didn't have to be a genius, in other words. I didn't feel like I had to know everything. I wanted to be, I consider myself, I want to be congruent with what I'm trying to do. I want to deliver the results that I actually say that I can deliver. So it took me a little time to find out where is the connection between who I am and the skill sets that I've developed so far and what I can actually deliver and do for people. So that took some time. And then after that, it became an issue. The struggles became, well, how do I monetize this? How do I go out and how do I get my customers and find the people that I can help? So, and then once I did that, it became a matter of, now I've got all the stuff to do, and how do I organize it and stay on top of it and make it work? Mm-hmm.
I think you just described the plight of 90% of the people I've worked with over the years, and it's like when we find that gift, and me too, we find the gift that we have and we start to really understand how to use it. I think one of the greatest challenges many of us face is, all right, now how do I make money doing this? And then even once you figure out what the model is, being able to keep bringing new clients in, I think that's one of the most perplexing and maybe ongoing challenges that any of us that are passionate entrepreneurs faces, because it's a different energy. Tell me if this suits you and if this is similar for you, but it's a different energy to go get clients and to make sales than it is to deliver the thing we're passionate about.
Oh, totally. I mean, I'll tell you though, I'm a kind of a natural salesperson actually.
Oh, you're
Just
lucky.
well, I love people, and you know, and I guess I've kind of been enthusiastic naturally in my life, and so when I like something and I'm passionate about it, I want to share it with people. So that part, but I don't, the part about I didn't like selling. In other words, it sounds ridiculous, but I have the natural thinking for sales, but I don't like bothering people. I don't want to bother anybody, try to sell people something they don't want. So there were parts of the process that I didn't like. For instance, you know, when I first got started, I didn't want to pick up the phone and call people. I wasn't interested in doing that. There were so many things that were getting in my way and keeping me from monetizing the business and getting. So you're exactly right. It is a totally different skill set. Yeah.
So how did you solve that problem? I have what I worked for me, but I want to hear, how did you solve that problem of not really liking to sell, but needing to use that skill to build your business?
Well, I had heard a statement that changed my life that is, and people, you've all probably heard it, but it was niches bring riches. So I started to study that. What does that mean? And then I made a decision about a niche, a profession that I would, you know, narrow down and focus on. And when I did that, I mean, that one decision absolutely changed it all for me. Once I made that decision, then I could focus. I knew kind of who to talk to. I knew how to talk to them, and I knew where to find them, and you know, where they gathered and what they read and all that. So it really, really changed everything for me. Just that one decision. In fact, I remember, I'll never forget this. I made that decision one evening, the niche I was going to focus on. I mean, and I had a pretty successful business. I wasn't getting wealthy, but I was having a blast, and I was helping a lot of people, and I was consulting, and I was doing a lot of work at Cisco Corporation, the big technology company. And then 2008 hit, and they canceled all consulting. They cut everybody off. So I lost about 35% of my business to 40% of my business. And so I had to really step back and look, and that forced me to make these decisions and really think, okay, I've been studying marketing a little bit, right? And it made me think, what am I going to do? I mean, I have a wife and I have 4 daughters, so I've got to make a little money. So I made that decision one evening, and the next morning I went on a walk with a friend of mine, a neighbor actually, lived 2 houses over, who has a very successful business. And I told him that I decided on this niche that I was going to focus on. He said, "Hey, next month I'm going to this conference, and we're going to be with all these people, and that's what they do. Why don't you come with me?" And it was just amazing. So a month later, I flew into Virginia, and I met with the perfect people from my niche. And about 3-4 months later, we started working together, and it just took off from there. So it's been a great thing.
That's interesting because we just had a guest on a few weeks ago, and that was the thing she talked about, was that focusing on a niche was what changed everything for her. And really, you know, instead of trying to be everything, just really giving one main service to a key niche of people. So it seems to be a common thing that works for people.
Well, I mean, if you don't have $30 million to buy brand advertising with and get your name all over the world, right? You gotta start somewhere. And
Yeah.
once you grow from there and you start to develop a name and you got some money and revenue and you can fix things like make my website better and make my materials better and all that, then you know you can go to different niches and it starts to become a bigger deal, right? So.
All right, just so I don't leave everybody hanging, I said I know it worked for me, so I'll just share on the sales side, because I faced a lot of those same challenges that you did, Jay. Like, I was a real big people person, but I hated the idea that I was going to sell somebody. And one of the things that shifted for me was realizing you can't sell somebody if the solution that they need is the solution that you're excellent at. At that point, it's just helping people make a decision to get the problem solved that they have. So I literally had to change my mindset about what process I would take people through. And literally overnight, learning that it was okay to help people make a decision whether or not you're the right fit for them, if the solution I had was the right one for them. So mine was a bit of a mindset shift. But I love that you covered something different, because I totally agree the whole niches thing is so important.
And I love what you said. That is an excellent statement. That because you're not selling them, you're helping them make a decision about solving their problem. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, and I think, when you can own a process in your business that you feel uncomfortable with by changing the story you're making up about it, you become unstoppable. And to me, optimizing your business starts with optimizing your mindset and your ability to perform the things that must be done in your business. And I over and over and over again, I've proven it. Like changing the way I think about things is the first piece of how to make that happen.
Absolutely. And not to be self-serving, but that's what I measure is
Ah.
I measure that. I measure the perspective that people have toward the world.
That's invaluable. We're gonna have to talk more about this assessment because I'm loving it, and I find them so valuable because as a business owner, I need to hire people that have the ability to think certain ways, but can complement your skills, and it's not the easiest thing to figure out on your own. So this is great. So, let's talk a little bit about maybe a game-changing moment for you in the trajectory of your business. And you talked about the sales and getting into the niche. Was there any other moment in the trajectory of your business that you felt like everything just made it a million times easier?
Well, I remember when I've been studying this system for so long, right? And then I had been studying marketing as well, and then the whole economy kind of fell apart a little bit, right? And what happened then is, one principle I had learned was, well, see, I'd always been into personal development and helping people, right?
Hmm.
Coaching, developing people, and so on. And what I came to discover is that it's easier to sell something to someone, or to deliver, or to solve a problem, or give a solution to someone when they have a pain, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, if they don't have a problem, your solution's of no value, right? So, and then I connected it also to if they have a financial pain. You can, in other words, if I can keep them from losing money, and unfortunately, that's what it came down to, right? I kind of had to think of this from a really practical standpoint so I can feed my family, right? So when it comes right down to it, it's a matter of how's it impacting their pocketbook? Are they going to make money from what I am delivering to them, or are they going to save money? Because when the economy's bad, they're not going to just buy everything, right? That's
Right.
why Cisco cut off all those consultants. So I had to look at it from a different perspective. And that's why I kind of started to do the hiring piece, is because I had something that is objective and you can rely on. And no one else really can reveal this kind of risk that I can reveal in people. And so that was the game changer. When I connected up, wow, I have really learned something that very few people know, and it can be so valuable because it does deliver more, and it can be, impact their pocketbook and solve a real pain point for them. And then that's when I said, oh, I've really got something here. And that's when I started to focus on, well, where would I apply it, what niche, right? So that's one piece. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is, one of the game-changing moments was looking at basically a downturn in the economy and being resourceful enough to realize you had to reposition the value of what you did. And, I think, again, everything's always about how we position it in our mind. Being able to flip it around, and it's not always about making money, sometimes it's about saving money. And when you're stuck in your sales and things are not going the way you want, I'm a firm believer in find another way to make what you have valuable to people that you didn't think was valuable before. And it sounds like that's what you did, or at least you saw the value in making that bigger to your potential clients.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great synopsis of it. And then I basically thought to myself, you know what? This is a great hook. In other words, if they're not going to buy the development piece, which is really where I
Mm-hmm.
want to live with people,
Mm-hmm.
okay? I want to make an impact. And if they're not going to buy and better people's lives, and if they're not going to buy that from me right now, I have this other thing they can buy that I'm going to sell them what they want, and then after that, deliver what they need,
I was
right?
just going to say that. That's the trick. You got to get in their model of the world, figure out what is it that they think they want and what's pressing for them. And then once they're engaged in seeing the value, you can now lead them to the path of what they need, because it's not such a big risk in their mind anymore.
Yeah, and I've even got, I'll relate this quickly, but I've even got a whole new product process and training program that I'm about to roll out. Probably going to start that in about June. But again, I'm going to go through the hiring mechanism because there's 1,000,001 people delivering the thing that I'm going to be doing in the future. So I'm going to differentiate by going in through the hiring door. And once they're engaged and they know what I can do, they're going to buy this other piece from me. So that fits with what you were saying, I think.
So tell us more about this thing that's evolving, that's your next, exciting adventure.
Yeah, so because of what this information can reveal about people and let them know about themselves, I actually have a whole new sales assessment. So it's already there, but I'm going to develop it into a deeper, more complex system so that I can hand someone something that says, when you're in the selling process, when you're in prospecting, for instance, here's what you do when you prospect. Here's what you should rely on and do more of. Here's what you should watch out for. And here are some strategies to help you do that. Okay? And then when you're in presenting mode, here's what you should watch out for. Here's what you can rely on, and so on. And so every part of the selling process, it breaks it down to how like for instance, how I sell, how Jay Henderson sells. Mm-hmm. When I'm in sales, which is the broader context, prospecting, preparing, presenting, and preserving, that's the whole sales piece. Marketing is included in that. But then there's selling, which is interviewing, negotiating, demonstrating, and closing, as they call it. So all these pieces are broken down, and it's going to deliver to you exactly what you do in each of those places, and where you get in your own way, and what you can do to overcome it immediately.
I love it. That's so cool.
Well, that's good to get your feedback like that. I'm excited to roll that out.
Yeah, I actually did something like that many years ago when I first got into assessments, and I found it really valuable for me. It kind of had that sales piece that broke down that way. I don't think it was as in-depth as what you're doing, but it was really valuable. So, Jay, I like to ask people, and this is a great place to close today, what is a mantra or quote that you kind of keep in the forefront of your mind that's really inspiring for you?
I have spent, since I was 18 years old, listening to audio tapes, reading books. My father turned me on to that stuff. Mm-hmm, and there was actually about a 2-year period where I didn't listen to music or the radio at all. All I did was listen to tapes and things like that. So I'm trying to think of one. The thing that comes up for me is there's a great book by a guy named Jim Lair, who happens to be a friend of ours, and it's called The Power of Full Engagement. And the subtitle of that book is something to the effect of it's energy, not time, that is the fuel for high performance. And he goes on to talk about, or not time management, right? So it's energy. And he goes on to talk about how to manage your energy so that you have the highest possible energy and the most positive possible energy. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what I focus on. I'm really dialed into where's my energy from a literal quantity standpoint. Do I have a lot of energy? Because if you don't have a lot of energy, the things that are going to hit you that are difficult are going to knock you down even harder and make it even more difficult for you to get up. So I really focus on that. That inspires me, having a lot of energy so that I can not only build my business and grow it, but I can be the best I can be with my family and in serving other people the best that I can. That's
great, and I love that you brought that up, because I know for me that's been a huge deal, is really learning how to be internally resourceful and create the energy inside of me that I need to do the things I need to do on a daily basis. And so I'm going to have to check out that book. I haven't read it. What was it, Jim?
Jim Lair.
Lair.
Yep. L-O-E-H-R. Yeah.
All right. So let's wrap up, Jay. Where can people find you online? Let's give everybody a way to come connect with you.
Thank you. You can go to realtalenthiring.com. And there's my website there. You can email me at j@realtalenthiring.com. And I'd love to meet any and all of you.
Are you on Facebook or Twitter or any of the social media places, LinkedIn?
I am there, but don't ask me to tell you how to find me there.
You're like, that's the mystery part of the business. I don't know where it is. So
I delegate all that stuff.
Good for you. See, I knew there was a reason we were going to connect well. Well, Jay, thank you so much for being on today and sharing some really valuable what we might say strategies and insights into what I think is really challenging for a lot of people, and that is dealing with teams. And really, what we're saying is really learning how to lead people by understanding their strengths and what it is that they have to bring to the team.
Absolutely, Melanie. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and it's been fun. You're a good interviewer, by the way.
Oh,
I've done some
thank you.
interviews.
I have fun with this. I think people are fascinating, and we can pull out the little nuggets that you don't get to talk about all the time. You can see you lighting up. And as a matter of fact, I'd love to hear as a listener today, what's something that you got out of the dialogue with Jay and myself today. If there was an aha or an insight or a strategy that you're excited about, share it with us in the post below. And if you're listening on iTunes, you can come over to melaniebensonstrick.com and come find us on the blog and share there. All right, goodbye, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.